Serious, people who have sleep paralysis demons, what's that like? Warning, some audiences may find this content disturbing. View at your own discretion. Welcome to the House of Reddit. Today, we share some r/askreddit posts from Reddit. Serious, people who have sleep paralysis demons, what's that like? I tried to talk to it the second time I saw it, I just knew it was the same shadow that get close to me every time I closed my eyes. Next, it is what happened to me. It was the same situation, couldn't move my body, I tried to talk, but I couldn't move my mouth, I think my lip just trembled, but no sound. Then, I felt the weight of his body on me, I felt a big tongue, too big to be human, licking my cheek. That was far worse than the last time. I swear it felt so real, I thought this can't be a dream. If it's a dream, somebody wake me up. I tried to close my eyes but I couldn't, it was so close to me, that I literally felt his breath on my skin, I started to cry. I said inside, "Mom, please, help me." I think we all think in our parents, when the fear is freezing us. My mom is dead. She died when I was young. But since I cried for her to help me, I haven't had another episode. But, I know they will come back eventually. There are 5 major symptoms for narcolepsy. The defining symptom is excessive daytime sleepiness. It's also a difficulty staying asleep. Also symptoms include hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations. These are hallucinations right before you fall asleep or right after you wake up. This is where sleep paralysis falls in. As a kid, hallucinating before you fall asleep, then waking up with your dreams still there even though you're awake and present, or sleep paralysis, are terrifying experiences. Ones that are hard to understand. Everyone I had ever shared these experiences with didn't understand or share a similar experience, so I was left feeling like I was a maniac and didn't share them again. I luckily don't suffer from cataplexy, but that's a weakening of the muscles that is usually associated with the feeling. It can be mild like a face twitch to extreme like fainting every time you laugh or get scared. My friend, you need to see a sleep specialist. I was a danger on the road when my kids were little. I'd fall asleep driving and have to plan out nap routes on the way to drop them off at school. For me, changing colors of light have been a lifelong trigger. Movies, concerts, sunrise, sunset and large PowerPoint presentations, as well as being in a moving vehicle, I couldn't stay awake through any of it. It's rare to have a trigger like that, apparently, or it's rare to figure it out. I have a superpower, on one hand, that I get on a plane and I'm out until I land, so I never have to suffer through a flight. But there's a bad side to it, too. You can't know without an MSLT sleep study, where they make you nap during the day and see how long it takes for you to hit REM sleep. But it does sound like narcolepsy to me. Type I also has cataplexy, Google it. Type 2 does not. I have type 2, thankfully. There is treatment, you can get this under control. And sadly, if you do not, there is cognitive decline as you get older. That's why I finally got treatment. Narcoleptics do not complete all the sleep cycles, so even if you sleep for 20 hours a day, you're always operating on a sleep deficit. See a sleep specialist. You'll have a sleep study, and armed with a diagnosis, you can improve your life. Good luck! I used to have them when I was younger. I would always wake up and 3 blobbish black masses would be at the foot of my bed. No faces, but blacken, more so than their bodies, and sunken in where their face should have been, no sharp lines or distinct figures. Just 3 separate blobs floored to about 6 feet long. Couldn't move, felt like I couldn't breathe, and I would just have to lay there until they dissipated. They weren't violent but felt malevolent. Felt like hours until they left, but I had no sense of how much time would pass. I would like to note that my mother made me collect dolls growing up and would put them in my room. I wholeheartedly believe those keep the dead inside, but that's my opinion. Through college and few years after, I had sleep paralysis fairly often. It was never the same hallucination. The first experience was Samara from The Ring hanging over me and dripping water onto me, woke up drenched in sweat. I've also just seen the shadows of people on the wall while they spoke nonsense from the foot of my bed, seemingly with ill intent, but I couldn't understand them. Most of the time it was too dark for me to see, so it would just be the feeling of something pressing down on me, forcing me into the mattress, and usually accompanied by exaggerated house sounds or the sounds of nature outside of my window was open. Infrequent but unpleasant. As a child, 2 to 4 years old, I knew my Victorian bed was haunted. Every night, a group of gnomes would sit on the end of it, pulling faces at me, laughing, making rude gestures, while I was frozen, unable to call for help or even just hide under the covers. Oddly, my little sister wound up with that bed and tells me she had nightmares that exactly matched the ringleader of my nightly visitors. I assume I must have told her about them, but neither of us remember talking about it. As an adult, it's altogether more threatening but much less frequent. I have 2 visitors, never on the same nights. The less threatening is a gray, humanoid demon, with smooth skin, red-pink gums, long claws and large muscles. He sinks his claws into my leg and tries to pull me from the bed. I can't move, and it only goes when I manage to scream and my husband wakes me up. Sometimes those can last for what feels like hours. Worse is my Hat Man. Hat Man doesn't cause me physical pain, but he stands next to the bed or in the corner of the room, while I am suffocating and paralyzed. When I get this one, thankfully rarely, there's an intense, visceral sense of mindless terror. It sinks into me and causes anxiety for days afterwards. In the light of day, I am not afraid of any of these things, arachnophobia crew here, but I can't convey the fear they inspire when I am helpless. For me, it feels like a huge heaviness on your chest, and sort of like this weird in-between state of being asleep and awake. Total darkness, but the awareness that you're conscious and unable to move. I personally always feel like I see aliens, like weird lights, long, thin figures, and the sensation that someone is watching me or going to take me away. Then the worst part, I feel like I can't breathe, and I panic because I think I'm dead, and this is what it's like to be dead. It's horrible. And even if I realize what's happening and rationalize that I'm not dead, the feeling of not being able to breathe or move or call for help is so horrendous that I still panic like crazy. I try my best to wiggle my fingers and toes or move my arms, anything to focus on getting my body moving again. You know that scene in Kill Bill where she's in the pussy wagon saying wiggle your big toe? That's how it feels for me. And then I always spring awake kicking and screaming basically. I have them during periods of high emotional stress, if I am alone in bed. They are so frightening that my chest sometimes hurts during the dream, and I feel jumpy and anxious the rest of the day. Without fail, they are a variation of the same theme. I'm alone in the house and wake up to the pre-dawn light giving my room a cold, fuzzy quality, and I hear footsteps coming down the hall to my room. The footsteps sound slow and malicious, as if the person they belong to has an unblinking, extra-wide smile frozen on his face. The footsteps sound like someone who really loves cutting things. Face the door, I order myself. Turn your face and body toward the door, you have to fight this person off. You have to defend yourself. I can't though, I am suddenly and inexplicably frozen and I can't even move my fucking eyes. I start screaming at myself from the inside of my head, because now there's something in the room with me and I'm facing away from it, and oh fuck, I hear another set of footsteps in the hall. The second thing is in the room and I still hear more footsteps in the hall. There are always 3 beings, every single fucking time. They're whispering to each other about me, and even though I can't make out the words, I can tell they still have those awful stretched out smiles on their faces. I am screaming now inside my head, screaming at myself to please move, please turn around and face these things, please try to defend myself. Then they're at my bed. And that's when I really lose it inside an immobile and defenseless body, unable to even clearly see them from the corner of my eye. I can't make a single sound despite the screaming in my head. I know they're going to seriously hurt me and there's not a goddamn thing I can do other than lay there. Then I wake up. I had one experience that was probably a form of sleep paralysis. I was living alone in a basement suite and had a loft bed. I woke up to the sound of someone coming down the concrete stairs to my suite. They opened the glass door, click click swoosh, and then the wooden door. I could hear them turn the knob and open the door. They stepped in with soft footfalls on the tile and let the glass door bang shut behind them. My suite was just one room and they spent a few minutes going around the room and moving dishes. A metal bowl fell to the floor, shuffling papers at my desk under the bunk, opening drawers, etc. They opened and closed my laptop and then I could hear them go to the end of my bed. The bed was an IKEA loft bed with stairs. I could feel it shift as they slowly stepped up and hear each soft footfall and the creak of the wood. They got to the top and began to crawl over me. I could feel the bed shift and hear it creak as they place one hand by my knee, the next by my hip, and then move their first hand up to my shoulder while their knee pressed into the mattress by my thigh. I could feel and hear them, but although I could feel their breath on my face and feel the sunken mattress, I could see nothing. Not that there was no light, they were just not visible. I could see straight through to the ceiling as I lay on my back. Then they retreated one hand, one knee at a time, soft footfalls and creaky would back down the stairs. They shuffled some more papers on the desk and then I could sense more than hear as they placed one hand on the side of the bed by my head, then the other, and suddenly they leapt up, pulling their face over the edge of the bed near my head and rasped out, "I'm here." As they came towards my face. Right as they would have hit me, they just vanished. I was in a state of silent unmoving terror the entire time. When she vanished, I was finally able to sit up. I realized my room was filled with smoke and remember having the most bizarre sense of relief, like, oh, the scary demon lady isn't real, my house is just on fire. Thank goodness, turns out the smoke came from plastic that had leaked out of my 3D printer. It wasn't burning, just a buildup on the heat block that had started to smoke. I'm not sure if that smoke made me hallucinate or what, but I still get anxious and panicky when I think about it/her. I have only had sleep paralysis once, but it was the most terrifying moment of my life. I don't think the demon was for me though, but it was there. It was a very rough time for my family. My sister Amy had been missing for at least a year and we all feared the worst but still had hope she would be found. I had just sold all of my possessions and moved back in with my father, who normally remodels houses, but was laid up after a kickboxing injury. My father, sister and I are all bipolar of varying severity. He was very depressed, as was I. I awoke late at night in a dark room and I was unable to move. There seemed to be a darkness swirling around, almost like tentacles of pure black smoke pointed towards my father's room. The feeling of panic was overwhelming. I couldn't move and I couldn't breathe. From above there was a shining bright light that came down and calmed me. It was Amy. She told me that she was dead and she was no longer suffering. She was okay, but she was worried about my father. She thought he was going to hurt himself. All of a sudden I could move again and I screamed from my soul. The darkness faded and I went to my dad's room and asked him if he was okay and told him that I loved him and that I saw my sister in a dream and she wanted him to be okay and loved him. He didn't know what I was talking about and went back to sleep. I don't know if I saw my sister that night. I don't know if there was something else there feeding from our misery. I never felt that level of dread and panic again or woken up unable to move. I started grieving for my sister that night. I knew in my heart she was dead and no longer suffering. They found her body years later in a fairly deep grave. Some kids were out by the river and found a bone. The police say that outside of some miraculous jailhouse confession they will never know what really happened, but they do think she was murdered. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let us know in the comments below. Turn on the notifications to know when we post new videos. Thank you for coming to the House of Reddit.